So what are our kids consuming? If you are a parent listening to this, if you're in charge of a young person, if you're an educator, if you don't even have kids, but you have the ability to be a demonstrative teacher to a child, which I think we all have a responsibility to do, especially in a digital world and especially with political upheaval, I think it's essential to witness that a child on their phone might be dealing with their negative mental health. They might have apps that deal with their anxiety. They might be using on that device that you can't see. You glance over at a couch. They might literally be using their device right now because they feel ignored in the room they're in. Who empowers our children? We do.
Yeah.
We are responsible.
All right. Well, welcome to the show, Joe. This is Joe Whitbread, and he's come to join us from Lacombe. And you have a social media company, so it's Joe Whitbread.
So Joe Social Media, yeah.
Social media. Oh, that's pretty straightforward. Okay. Excellent. So we talked a little bit off camera, so there's probably a million things we're going to try to cover, and we won't get through all of it. And yeah, wonderful. So you've been in social media for a couple weeks?
For as long as social media has been around, and I say that seriously. Social media came about for all of us sort of in this magical way. Smartphones, devices, they turned from T9 texting to the ability to do things online. Social media became a way to communicate with others.
What's social media? Like, how would we even start to define it?
Well, and it's a great question. Social media is anywhere online or any space in a public sphere where I can eavesdrop, where I can meet with friends, family, acquaintances, loved ones, strangers on the internet, but you can watch. Social media is no different than overhearing a conversation at the local coffee shop that our grandparents used to do. Now it's broadcasted on public display, and what you say can and will be used against you.
Yep. Perfect. Excellent. So, you've been doing it for a long time. And when do you think, what's the genesis of it? Like, when can we put a pin in?
So LinkedIn, believe it or not,
we would have needed internet based on part of your.
Once we started to connect, once email really began, late 90s, early 2000s, social media didn't come along until about 06, 07, depending on which platform you're talking about. LinkedIn's one of the oldest, believe it or not. Facebook's the one we think of the grandfather of them all, but LinkedIn was there, a few years before. Remember that social media used to be very public. Imagine, Mark Zuckerberg connecting at Harvard University with his friends. We all know that story in that movie, but there's professional components of that, which is LinkedIn and professional channels. There are personal and family versions, and then there are individual versions. And now that's the way youth and young people are using it most of all. A lot of reason for that is the responsibility adults had to teach them when we didn't know what the heck we were teaching. And so a lot of young people actually use Instagram not as a public place to post like the adults in their lives do. They use it for direct messaging, same as Snapchat. They're using private channels of social media, which is still social media, but the eavesdropping component, following along with your 14-year-old, has never been harder because they're buried underneath the direct messaging of the internet. That's their social media. Yours and mine, when we first learned in 2006 and 2007, ours was about posting on a public wall or humble bragging about an award or a volunteer position we might have had so that it gives us a better light in job performance or potentially a job we want to have.
Yeah, I think my experience, I've started to evolve a little bit recently, and I literally Reddit and Twitter, now X, and Snapchat, not in my world.
No, and they're not
in my world.
And they're not supposed to be, right? You're Gen X and older. Gen X and older,
we're
different.
Supposed to be on Facebook.
Well, we're supposed to be on Facebook, but what is Facebook? Facebook is a public space to share with friends, families, maybe colleagues, but colleagues on the inside, right? And so this is no different than wide ties in the 70s, where if you wear ties today, that's out of style. What's in style, but then there's an entire retro underground. You might buy a vinyl record now and it's a retro underground, but someone who actually understands or lived through their first music purchases, vinyl is what they love and listen to. Both are vinyl records, but both are for different reasons. So it doesn't mean you can't Snapchat with your friends at your age and within your generation, but the Snapchatting or the Facebook public posting regardless and whichever, they're for different purposes. Just like fashions in retro bell bottoms that came back, or skinny jeans that you used to wear or watched older people wear, and now you're the older person, you might wear them in a retro fashion way. They're still the same jeans, but it's a different purpose.
Yeah. It's funny when you mention records. I was listening to a comedian. He was joking about how back when we were kids, I never had a girlfriend, so I'll just have to say it up front. But other people who had girlfriends, your makeout session had to be exactly as long as the one side of the record. Otherwise, you'd have to get up, flip the record, put the needle back on.
That's right. And that's maybe another issue with social media is there is no time limit, although kids have these time limits put on them, screen time and other things, which I'm sure we'll chat about.
Yeah. It's wild. Wild new world. And and good that you mentioned screen time, because that's just something we were kind of chatting about earlier. And it's, interesting that we've gotten something that I think, if you go back 30 years for sure, and someone said, hey, we're going to be addicted to looking at a phone, people would be like, whoa, maybe talking on a phone, but not. How can you possibly be addicted to a little thing in your hand?
Well, and a phone is a computer, and we don't call it that. You're right. We still call it a phone. It's a device. It's a unit that takes us anywhere on the planet for a multitude of reasons. The other thing that it really bothers me in my speaking around the province to kids and to their teachers and educators who are supposed to be all knowing, and educators and teachers, God love them, they haven't been given the notes to teach because they're learning on the fly as well. Their screen time needs to be as limited as the 14 or 15-year-old that they're either teaching or even parenting in many cases. So it's a really complex component of our society, and the fact that the Apples and the Googles and the Android device makers capitalize, no different, no doubt, than a pop you like to drink or something you consume, anything you consume. There are more cardboard boxes on front porches than there ever have been before because we want to consume. But I would argue that's in direct parallel to the fact that we are on our devices, because you have the ability, and humans will always choose community or connection in what they do. And if you have the ability to do that and it's in front of you, you will choose that. And you will choose that more specifically if you're in a negative or a space of mental health where you aren't getting the connection you desire in front of you. That's why teenagers, that's why young people, but more importantly, and what we never seem to look at in ourselves in the mirror, is that's why adults of every generation are also choosing connection on their devices, because we are void of one or something in front of us.
Yeah. And, and the reality is that, any social media provider of any format uses game technology to gamify what we're doing. They've sucked us in. They know exactly what we want. They're feeding us drip by drip. And it really, at some levels, it's not a lot different than going to a casino back 50 years ago when you have someone just cranking quarters until there's no more quarters.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. I say this quite a lot in all facets of my career, whether I'm speaking to kids about device time and addictions, or speaking to adults about learning LinkedIn and why it's important that personal branding controls your own narrative. And I think that's an essential part that so many professionals in all spheres at all education levels simply don't understand. We were taught to think something is vain or that you're conceited if you appear now online, but even back then, you don't want to talk more than you're spoken to. You don't want to, be a listener more than a speaker. Now everyone's got a podcast. Everyone's got content. Everyone's got a channel for their professional side hustle or whatever it might be. Or if you don't, if you're a listener or viewer of this podcast and you don't have that side, everyone's got a side hustle. Everyone's got something they do. Might be volunteer, might be giving, or it might be something that actually has, monetization. But there is a side hustle there. You might coach your kids, hockey or soccer team. You might buy a farmer's market booth and sell your wares. You've got a side hustle. It's those who are pursuing an entrepreneurial spirit, which, by the way, we aren't taught, at least where I was. You were taught to be middle management. You were taught to sit in rows. You were taught to go get a job within a corporation or an industry. We were not taught, at least where I'm from, that entrepreneurial spirit can be alive and well while you earn a career status or income.
Right.
And now we live in, never mind social media, never mind the marketing media that allows you to have your side hustle. I think we live in a multi-entrepreneur world where people are, and kids are learning this everywhere. They know that if they have a hobby, they can broadcast that hobby.
Right.
Do you know how many kids, Craig, I meet in schools who at 12 or 13 years old, they're diving into this world. They've been raised on a consumerism of marketing. And so they actually have an Instagram account for their cat. They have an Instagram account for their mom's fern or plant in the corner. And the reason, when you discover what that is, they've been taught to market something, but they've also been taught in a North American culture not to talk about themselves, don't be conceited, don't be vain. And until, imagine your own adolescence, until you have the confidence to show yourself, talk about yourself. We talked about how teenagers are more underground on their internet or their social media activity. They would rather direct message than post publicly. That's what their moms and dads do. But kids want to be entrepreneurs. If you have a creator in your house, you already know it. That means the Lego has been set up to film a stop motion. They don't want to post it on their YouTube. They don't even have a YouTube because, frankly, mom and dad said they're not allowed to have one because we're scared of what YouTube might be. But that's an entrepreneur. That's a creator. That's something that should be fostered.
Here's an interesting thought, and it came up. I have kids, and they're a little bit older now. But, they did the normal kid thing. They scrolled and scrolled and scrolled and scrolled and scrolled. And at one point, I don't know, it was maybe just something in my head. It was like, I'm sick and tired of you scrolling. Why aren't you giving back to that? Like, why are you only consuming it and not adding anything to it? And I don't know, maybe that was a horrible thing or maybe it was the best idea ever. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I have a great thought on that. What if you just replaced that entire anecdote with all my kid does all summer long is reads and reads and reads and reads. Yeah. But they've never authored a book. Why aren't you giving back? Why are you just consuming what you read? Why will you not write a book? And the answer, that sounds so silly because your 12-year-old's not going to author a book. But why are we treating social media any different? Why do we feel, when we even say the words, all they're doing is scrolling, scrolling, scrolling? Adults have created the negative connotation to that. And by the way, you're thinking it, your listeners are thinking it, I'm thinking it. The word scrolling has a negative connotation. If you're scrolling, it must be mindless. It must add to some frivolous stupidity. We've all had after-school television back in the day of Generation X where you just watch something mindless, brainless, stupid. This is what kids have screamed at their educators and their adults in their world. People like me, when I go in and speak in their schools, they're screaming at us going, you realize I'm consuming education. I'm consuming passions. I'm consuming, no different than a good book, I'm consuming what's going to drive my potential career, my passions, my side hustle. But why the moment we make it about phones and screen time is that scrolling doom, gloom, and negativity. I know a ton of kids, high intelligence level, misunderstood certainly, like many of your listeners and viewers would say they were, who are simply consuming what interests them. They're firing a passion that, frankly, they don't get at home. The conversation doesn't go around them understanding why political negativity is happening or why a claymation video of Lego characters absolutely enthralls them because they're studying time and physics. These are not bad things, but scrolling and screen time have turned into bad things.
Interesting.
If they were consuming books, I would wager and challenge you as a parent to say you would probably applaud, if not brag about them to your friends, that my child consumed 14 books in the last 3 weeks this summer. And the validation from our society would be, wow, you got one smart kid there. They stay off their device and they consume books. So we can't judge, in my opinion, what our kids are doing. We have to judge where they're doing it. And by the way, that's how we were judged. If you consumed Mad Magazine and Cracked, or if you consumed imagery or negative things back when we didn't have digital and devices, then it could, or let's use the common example, which is rag magazines, Pop Culture and Lies, the National Enquirer. If you were consuming those, there was a public judgment of your consumption of reading material. A People magazine or a pop culture gossip publication. But if you were consuming War and Peace or reading volumes G, H, I, and J of the Encyclopedia Britannica, somehow you're deemed smarter. So what are our kids consuming? If you are a parent listening to this, if you're in charge of a young person, if you're an educator, if you don't even have kids, but you have the ability, and I think we all do, to be a demonstrative teacher to a child, which I think we all have a responsibility to do, especially in a digital world and especially with political upheaval, I think it's essential to witness that a child on their phone might be dealing with their negative mental health. They might have apps that deal with their anxiety. They might be using on that device that you can't see. You glance over at a couch. They might literally be using their device right now because they feel ignored in the room they're in. They don't have the love that they desire.
I think that's common.
I think it's really common. But we see a child on their phone, so they must be watching a crap gaming content on YouTube or any other judgment that adults have put on them. Kids hate what we watch, and we hate what they watch. And that is not a new digital thing. How many times did you walk into the room of your grandparents or your parents and they were watching something you rolled your eyes at and you just wanted to watch children's programming? The opposite is true. We don't want to see a gamer yelling at us about demonstrating some new move in Fortnite or on Minecraft because we don't understand it. But for a child's brain right now, that's their escape from a day of reality at school, from the stresses of a crush that they didn't get the attention of or did. That's what we're dealing with in digital.
So I wonder if, and I think we see the one thing that we learn, because it's the accessibility of the entertainment essentially, is that it's easy to check out of our day-to-day, and stop being present in situations. And like you were saying, is your example, if I'm, 50 years ago and I'm sitting there talking to my grandmother, I didn't get bored of her and then open the Iliad and start reading Homer,
Right.
But today a kid can be sitting in a group of 5 people and just kind of like, I'm checked out, and then just start scrolling like mid-conversation. That's a little off to me. But.
No, and you're right. And so what you're actually talking about, though, and this actually gets it's another one of my pet peeves. What you're talking about is etiquette.
That's right.
And etiquette, by the way, is no longer taught. It wasn't even taught, frankly, for me. I'm born in 1975. I grew up through, the last part of the 70s, but I'm an 80s child, right? Pop culture, and from Cyndi Lauper and Madonna and Michael Jackson in the music scene to the very first global blockbusters in the movie scene, to consumer models. Before my time, just to put it in perspective for anyone not in my generation, but certainly in reminiscence and sentimentality for those who are, we were the first generation that saw multi-products in one segment category. We were the first ones to see flavors of Coca-Cola, not Coca-Cola. We were the first ones to see packaging. Dolls for boys and girls, for us, were the first ones that were packaged with twist ties to show the gun or the hairbrush or the packaged Barbie doll or the G.I. Joe doll was packaged so we can imagine what it looked like. The Nerf guns was a movie on our 30-second commercial. Cereal boxes spoke to us with cartoon characters. These sorts of reminiscence. We were the first ones who were taught or marketed consumerism. And the generation before us was not. And because the generation before us was not, we're actually in a very similar situation. Again, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Our parents didn't know how to teach us through packaging. They saw the noise of the boob box, the television. They saw the quick edits and the flavor of the month for the first time, because in their day, it was regimented news. The entertainment was regimented on a decorum. So what you're talking about is etiquette. And we don't teach etiquette anymore. Never mind whether it's a phone or the next thing, we're already seeing more meta glasses and sunglasses that are recording us. Etiquette is going to dictate that if I'm sitting in front of you with glasses on right now and I have the ability to go live, etiquette in the new generation is going to be disclose that. We haven't even got to that yet. So
That's an interesting thought.
I've said for a long time, one of the first classes I would add to public, Catholic, Christian, any education, learning, even homeschooling, is a new class of etiquette. And I'm talking right down to how my grandfather taught me to shake hands and look you in the eye, and how my last name is my reputation, never mind how many followers I have.
Yeah. That's interesting, hey? Our kids don't get taught that at all.
And with all due respect, kids get blamed for a lot of things. And I'm not saying you're doing that. Guess who teaches kids? Our kids right now are taking the brunt of punishment in a public sphere for device use, what they're not taught, laziness, the fact they won't get a job, the fact they'll live in their mom's basement till they're 27. Who empowers our children? We do.
Yeah.
We are responsible. No different than giving them an 8th place trophy, no different than celebrating mediocrity, no different than allowing them to try out for not the AAA team, not the AA team, not the A team, but we're going to make up a B team because you weren't good enough to make any of those, a C team, a D team. What's the point of the letter? The letter is so that their jacket gets that they have to buy for $124 so they can fit in. You're part of the D team so that you can be on a linear level of the person who did make the elite team. You didn't make the team, and that's okay. But what we're doing is we're purchasing elite hoodies, elite jackets. We're doing tournament trips to places we have no business with our socioeconomic status to visit. Parents can't afford it. But we're doing it because we want everyone to feel what it must be like to make that AAA team.
Yeah. This is 2 experiences that were kind of fun. And it's because you said, parents visiting places they can't afford. I took some scouts out one time on a hike. And this one kid was dragging behind, and I was pushing him along the way, And he's like, I hate doing that. I don't want to do this. And he's like, well, firstly, why are you here? I said that in my head. And then I said, well, you're never going to see these places. If you don't, you have to walk there to see it. And he said, he just looks at me and goes, have you ever seen Google Earth? And it's like, you got me.
Oh gosh, that's like ordering from Uber Eats or Skip the Dishes and pretending you've traveled the world having Indian cuisine. I agree with you, and these are the common. And by the way, this conversation, a podcast is a great opportunity to have a conversation. Nothing I'm saying is right. Nothing I'm saying, although I'm an expert in my field, is the way it should be. And I think we do live in this world now through political figures and celebrity where we're told to think a certain way, but that way must be right. Nothing I'm saying is right. If you want to limit your child's screen time, if you want to lock your liquor cabinet and not have them experience the look of booze, let alone taste it until a certain age, a legal age obviously, but even within the makeup of your home, liquor is a past trauma for you. You've had alcoholics in the family. You don't want your kids exposed to it. That's completely up to you. But I will tell you, studies show, whether we're talking about tattoos, liquor, new cannabis, and social media screen time, if you keep someone in adolescent growth away from the liquor cabinet or screen time, the moment they get an opportunity, no matter how wonderful you think your child is, they will want what they never had. That's why we see, whether it's sexual activity, going to get your first tattoo the moment mom's not looking, trying a Bud Light around the campfire with your buddies underage, whatever this is not me spouting these facts. We know that if you're kept from something, you want it more. And so I'm not at all here to tell anyone listening, and in my presentations around the province, I'm not here to tell teachers, educators, or certainly the students how to act. But your presence in these spaces and places right now demonstratively matters. The fact that coffee is a culture now. You and I grew up and coffee was a caffeine device.
Yeah, my parents would never have considered letting us drink coffee.
No, but it's a culture, right? Yeah. The glass of wine through social media posts for 10 years has become an escape from parenting. That's part of its brand, and that's not fair to kids. Imagine being 8 years old and recognizing through social media content that anytime an adult in your life has this thing called alcohol, a glass of wine, a beer, that, oh my gosh, I've had such a hard day, I need to forget reality by having alcohol. And I understand that's hyperbole. For most people, you can have a beer or a glass of wine in front of your kids. But we do know that wine and wine culture, specifically among women, having a bottle of wine tonight lets me forget my day, which tells our kids, why do you want to forget your day? It tells our kids that you're burying yourself in something. They don't understand in this hypothetical what wine does. And it doesn't do anything damaging, although it can, just like everything can. Device use can be damaging if you're on it all day. If a 14 to 17-year-old male is playing video games on a Friday night until Saturday morning at 6 a.m., which happens quite a lot, that is damaging. Doesn't matter the game they're talking about. We can get right down deep into the game they're playing. I'm not talking about that. The fact that they've been neglected in their room or their basement enough, and I do say neglect. You can do everything. Hey, I know how hard it is with teenagers to get them off the device. We aren't talking about how hard it is or the process to do that. That's a whole other parenting podcast. This one isn't. But it is damaging. So what are they lacking in their world? What other elements, if we want our kids to go ride their bikes or go smell the flowers or experience something, go on that trail hike, we have to help them do it, even when they don't want to do it.
I wonder how close the correlation would be between having a grandmother who is on the slot machines and a 16-year-old who plays Fortnite. Like, there's probably a similar parallel.
There's a lot. I'm glad you said that. There's so many parallels in consumerism that we, adults, part of my conversations in schools is always about being on their side, because I think kids need to know. Kids are taught in every go back to when you learned about just say no to drugs, right? This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. Every other assembly you learned about.
It was always about don't, like you were being scolded before you ever tried it if you tried it.
You were being scolded because adults have this way of a fear-based approach.
Shaming. Yeah.
Shaming, right? And so we're doing the same thing. And it's so funny because you talk to so many connected adults now who, in a new culture where we're allowed to expose how we felt or past traumas or things that happened to us, we're in my opinion, we're a much better culture than our
Parents were the ones who came home from war or who had parents that came home from war.
That baby boomer culture whose dad simply didn't say, I love you, because his dad didn't say, I love you. Or he didn't cry because it was not okay for a man to cry, and so many other versions of that reality. Now we are, in my opinion, parents in general are we're way more capable to parent. We have things we did wrong, plenty, and we learned through it. Like I said, in consumerism, we let our kids have what we were heartbroken not to have. We wanted the first place trophy. We didn't win it. And so we were the first generation to invent a second, third, fourth, fifth place trophy. And we did that. That's not the kids' fault. Yeah. But kids are so often blamed for what our deficiencies are. And I think it's time, while we advance and develop and mature in our parenting, I think it's time we also start recognizing there's no bad kids. Kids are created to be good human beings, or to be nefarious, or to be hidden, or unfortunately, through so many things that are done to children, way beyond their control and permissions, there are things from their past that we know will come out. We see that. There's scientific evidence of that. I think it's really important that we as adults become responsible. And I use the word demonstrative all the time. How you decide
to literally come in the door, to bring your energy
into a room at the end of the day while adolescents are watching. Even that very rudimentary and seemingly simple thing. If you enter a room with energy, your child, same gender or otherwise, so if it's a boy watching his father or a boy watching his mother or a girl watching her father or a girl watching her mother, if you consider the many ramifications of that's okay to act like that. And I think we're seeing that in real life on this level, but we're seeing that at this level online because they are witnessing the demonstrative person in their life. Might be a celebrity they'll never meet, might be a sports star they've seen and idolize, but they're watching how they act because they idolize them and they will be them. So let's be those people for them. Even in a broken home where there is no mom and dad, there's step parents, there's divorcees, there's so much of that. Let's be demonstrative. And that's why I say we all have a responsibility. I happen to be a dad of 3, all adults now. I went through all of this. We weren't perfect. We went through all of the direct messaging and this is okay and this isn't okay and I'm making the rules up on the fly. I went through all of it too. I'm not a perfect individual and my kids aren't perfect. But gosh darn it, was I, because of my public life and because of what I do for a living and because I have such a study on the human behavior part, the psychology part of social, I started recognizing what they were seeing and how they'll likely act when they get into the late 30s, 40s and become child rearing themselves.
Yeah, there's got to be some danger in the way and I know there's been studies on it, it's the way the algorithm kind of skews, creates bias as well. Like you kind of feed it a little bit and it feeds you back, and there's some danger in that.
It's all kinds of danger. But I will say, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I've said it before. If you always drive in a downtown area of a major city, or if you're in a rural or smaller town, you always take the same route, or the things you don't do plays as much a role as the things you do. If you do not consume alcohol, you have a bias or a judgment. These are all the algorithms that we didn't talk about. Yeah. The way you were raised, the way you were taught to speak, if swearing was a regular thing in your home as words, vocally, part of a verbiage, that's one thing. But if swear words were used as a weapon or attack or louder trigger moments of those swears, you're going to think very differently of how you use swear words. So I do agree with you, obviously, an algorithm and following through that. I love that you mentioned bias. A lot of what I talk about is in confirmation bias. The way politics is right now, the very fact that red, blue, orange in Canada, but red versus blue in the States are used as colors. Those are all confirmation bias. The very moment you see a red hat, you're going to think something. You just did.
That's funny.
You just did. I didn't even say what kind of hat it is. You see a red hat, you're going to think something. You see a blue tie, you're going to think something. And so that's confirmation bias. And I think one of the best things we can do is understand our confirmation bias and realize that it's all based on past experiences, past traumas, and past successes, because confirmation bias doesn't have to be a negative thing. You're going to have a confirmation bias if a good thing happened to you every time you heard this song. Even if the song has sexual innuendo or negative components to it, someone else, and this is the whole problem with our political, someone else hates that song. Well, they had a different experience with that song.
Yeah, it's speaking of that, I won't even say what song it is, but there was a song, and I loved the song. It was just catchy and fun, and I don't know. It was,
an earworm.
You could dance around to it. And then someone said, you know what that song's about? And it's like, you just destroyed it for me. Now I can't listen to it anymore. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's not interesting. And that is what others do to us. Isn't that interesting? Because you can take that so many different ways. Imagine a child, imagine a 15, 16-year-old adolescent, male, female. Imagine them thinking a certain thing online or on air or television, if it's still a part of what you do. And imagine them thinking a certain thing, but hearing around the kitchen table the bias of what the family thinks of that celebrity or that song in this case. And that immediately changes. They want to impress. Remember, we want validation as a young person, right? We're immature. Many people still want validation, right? We want people to laugh at our joke. When we do speak up in a boardroom of 16 people, if we do have the guts to speak up, and maybe we're an introvert, we want validation. That's an extension of your adolescence. Yeah. That time you chose to speak up and you said, yeah, I actually really liked what he said online.
Yeah.
If you get in a negative reaction, not only does that topic become one you wish you didn't speak about, but you'll think twice about speaking up again. That could shatter your self-confidence. Yeah. And this is what teenagers are. And I always tell kids, we were them, they've never been us. And that's a really important part of this, right? So when you have a speaker in your high school, when you have someone who's teaching you, when you have an author, when you have a podcaster, typically, and not to get into ageism, it's not about age, it's about maturity and life experience. But we've been you. Every time I'm in a gymnasium, every time I'm in an assembly for kids, I'm the speaker now. But I can think back every single time that I had a speaker in my junior high or high school. And I remembered how they brought their energy into the room. I remember what they wore. I remember how they tried to get our confidence or our trust. Because one of the things in public speaking you have to be able to do instantly, whether you're emceeing a wedding or speaking, being a deliverer of information and a thought-provoking, speaker of some sort, the first thing you have to do is you have to give credentials of why you're an expert on this topic, but you also then have to establish that you are, in fact, trustworthy on that topic. And so kids are extremely difficult. They're a hard audience on social media, almost impossible for advertisers. That's why there's so many amazing, marketing. I'm a marketing junkie, and I love watching, we're easy to get. You can stop our scroll, no problem. If we need a snow shovel, we know we do. That algorithm's gonna take us down a pathway where snow shovels are in our timeline, and all of a sudden we're buying the snow shovel we want, the metal one or the plastic one, the yellow one or the orange one, whatever. Kids are very difficult. So kids are also very hard in assemblies to gain trust of, especially with a stranger outside of the school. If it's the gym teacher they've had for 3 years, sure. But someone outside, especially when you're talking about something that, and I use air quotes on this, that they know everything about. I use air quotes because they don't. That's just, they don't know everything about. Sorry, none of us do. Not even the expert or thought leader. But so you have to gain their trust, and the algorithm is something that I think is a part of it's our new vernacular, but the algorithm has always been around. That we've always needed to gain trust in something. When we do, we get to see more.
It was less automated when I watched the Flintstones at 4:00, 40 years ago.
Love the Flintstones.
The ads that were programmed were specifically for kids my age, and that was
absolutely. I remember, this is a true story, the Pine Lake tornado in 2001, devastating deaths and destruction in Pine Lake in central Alberta. At the time, 2001, no social media, barely internet, but it existed. But news stories were covered much like the newspaper. It would happen 24 hours later. A story would be written and then posted. So in 2001, the Pine Lake tornado, I'm watching coverage on local RDTV, and they have a live crew there. They managed to get them there hours after the fact, and we're watching witness testimony. And you imagine they went to break because commercials pays for public broadcasting. They went to break, and the first ad I heard and saw, I'm not joking, this is a true story, was the new Twister combo from KFC. And I remember at the time, I'm a young person, or at least a young professional at the time in marketing. But the algorithm, had it existed, the algorithm would have allowed words like Twister to be omitted. We were able to block. We're not going to tornado. It was so disrespectful. But because we lived in a time in 2001, everyone knew that was not played on purpose. But it was. But it was wild.
That's
so the Pine Lake tornado will be right back with more devastation, more loss, more death. The new Twister combo from KFC, and it was.
That is so wild.
But so now we don't live in that world. Now those things we can block words. I've worked for many companies on social media where I can block words that might mitigate negative comment sections. By the way, if you don't think this is happening, there's so much I could tell your audience about what they're actually being baited to hear, but more importantly, Craig, what they'll never hear, because those words aren't allowed in this feed between these time zones. And marketers have so much more power now.
Wow. So we do want to talk about celebrity, but something you had mentioned before was about entrepreneurship and people having side hustles. And it's just kind of burning in me. I got to tell you, it's funny.
Please.
So I went to this night market, and it was just like a bunch of pop-up booths in a park with a DJ. And, there was kind of someone selling cookies, someone selling some kind of jewelry, T-shirts.
Artisan crafts and gifts and things.
By far, the largest number of vendors were candles. By far.
Yep.
It was wild.
And why do you think that is?
I don't know.
I have a thought.
They must be cheap to make.
Yep. That was my thought.
Everyone loves the good candle. Like, even when you go to Walmart now, it's like there's a whole row of candles. And it's like, who's buying all these candles?
And there are people listening to this podcast right now that would go, oh, but there's so many crappy candles. Because the other thing that social media and digital has done is it's allowed us expertise in areas we never had expertise in.
Right.
So I guarantee right now there's someone here And they're nodding right now, even as I'm, validating them. They're going, oh yeah, he's so right. There are candles that just are sold for fragrance. They burn way too quickly. They actually burn poisons into the atmosphere. I guarantee that's.
We're worried about the climate, and we're starting all these mini fires.
Well,
everywhere.
it's candles that are ruining. No, I'm kidding. But but you're right. That was my thought too. Candles by far, because it's easy to make. They also showcase as a marketer. If something showcases, and typically in showcase, I always go back to kindergarten. I always go back to when you're 5 or 6 years old. Which book would you rather your grandparent read to you? The one with the pictures?
Yeah, it's hitting more senses.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's that 5-year-old. And think of the cereal aisle. The cereal aisle is the greatest place to look for the way marketing influences, no matter who you are, no matter your tastes. But at 4 foot 5 inches, which is the average 5-6-year-old, that's a little taller. 4 feet and 4 feet and under.
Yeah.
All sugar cereals, all cartoon characters, all of the big brands who buy.
That's what I buy.
Well, sure.
Let's be real.
And where is the granola? Where is the good for you?
It's in the garbage.
Well,
the other end.
No, gosh, no. Well, it's bought too, but it's in a special. It's in a
Yeah.
special section.
Yeah.
And what colors the shelves? What colors the shelves of the stuff that's going to make you feel good? It's always green, or it's tones of earth, right? And this is marketing. This is marketing. The organic sections are this is that greenwashing we've heard about, right? If the Dasani water bottle has a green cap, it's not going to kill a whale. Right, but it is. It's a water bottle
green.
made by Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
But the greenwashing, right? And so the same thing in your cereal aisle. If you want to see how things are marketed to you, and I challenge all of your listeners and viewers too. I always say, if you are able to get me on an impulse buy, I'm a marketer. I've been a marketer way before social media, in mainstream and traditional medias as well. If you're able to get me on an impulse buy, grabbing a pack of gum at the gas station or ordering something that hit my timeline or scroll, if you get me, I applaud you.
Yeah.
I absolutely applaud you, because I know every trick in the book. If you're hungry, you're more likely to see pizza and wings before a hockey game. If your vehicle is more than 7 years old, you're way more likely to look left and right at the red light, at the vehicles other people are driving, because you're already scouting out which model you're going to get next.
Yeah.
These are all marketing, facts. And so if you get me on an impulse buy, you got me. And I do get caught just like everyone else, but it's a wonderful thing, because I actually applaud them. And then they did their if I buy a snow shovel because it's in my timeline, then it was time for me to get a snow shovel.
Yeah. So you mentioned Dasani water. This is a bit of a this will maybe mess you up, or maybe you already know it. But I was in a Coca-Cola bottling plant.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't. Virtually no one understands that Dasani water actually comes to the bottling plant as a syrup.
Oh, I didn't know that.
In a box.
I don't want to know that, but
because Dasani water it's a filtered water with added product to it.
Of course it is.
So now it's very, very, very small amount, but it still comes in a box, and it wouldn't be Dasani water if you didn't add something to just plain old filtered water.
Right.
Isn't that wild?
It's wild, but it's disturbing, right? Yeah. We want to think that the apple we buy, from a tree, right? That's what we learned. We want to think that it's a pure apple, and we know it's not. We know it's been sprayed, but even further than that, we know it's been polished, it's been waxed.
Yeah.
But we know there's that sticker. All of you can think of that sticker on it. What's on the back of the sticker? I'm not one of these people that completely clean everything that I consume. I just can't keep up with that. Some people do, and that's fine. But even the very sticker on that apple, was it applied by a human thumb?
I think the sticker is food grade. I think you can eat them.
I think you can too. But was it applied by a human thumb? Did that person wash their hands? I mean, we can drive ourselves mad with what's on our apples.
Do you remember, we bought apples the other day. You get a little, I think it's, they used to be 5-pound bags, and then they were 4.54, now 3.75. They're getting smaller, but the price is going up. It's
like Halloween candy.
But you and I would remember when you went to buy apples back in the old days, they came in a basket, in a wooden basket that someone weaved.
Yeah, it invented the game of basketball. I mean, quite literally.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And now we're just a plastic bag and 3 apples.
Everything's a plastic bag. What's so fascinating, Craig, about that is that they've outlawed in our country and others in our province, and they're back and other things. And I won't get into the political components of that, but plastic bags You're not allowed. You have to bring in bags. Yet everything we purchase is still in a plastic bag.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me. I know it doesn't make sense to anyone else, but it's so funny how we're doing things backwards.
Well, here's another side note to the plastic bag thing. There's a food drive every year in Calgary, and it's a citywide food drive for the food bank.
Right.
Years gone by, it had always been plastic bags, the very, very micro thin plastic bag, right? And then it had advertising on it, which is, probably good.
Right.
Then someone said, well, this year we can't have all those plastic bags out there. It's bad for the environment. It's bad for our planet, whatever. So they went without bags. Donations.
Of course.
Toilet.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
Of course.
No one's going to give up their own bag. So then they said, well, look, we need to do something, but we can't do plastic bags. So let's do the kind of like the shopping bag that you would buy for 15 cents or whatever. So now they're using the recyclable bags.
Yeah.
And the amount of bags, like I saw the boxes, it was so much more. Like it was boxes and boxes, took up warehouses of these boxes, where before it was like a couple truckloads.
Right.
Now it's like the amount of material is over the top. I have so many purchase bags. I have to buy one every time I go because I don't remember to bring them.
Of course, of course. And
I
they're
don't
all
think it's
brands.
helped.
I always feel bad. I don't know about you. I always feel bad. I'll walk into a corporate.
Yeah. I'm at Superstore and I have a Walmart bag.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry guys.
And the funny thing is, they're just like you and me. I don't
care.
give a. No one even cares, right? So
yeah, they're getting $18 an hour. They do not care what bag you're carrying around.
They don't at all. Yeah.
No. Yep. So okay, we were going to talk about celebrity a little bit.
I love this topic because we're all impacted by it. Our youth is impacted by it. Everything we're buying, whether we're at Walmart or Home Depot, is celebrity based because celebrity is inanimate. It's not just celebrity isn't just Britney Spears. Celebrity is an inanimate object. Home Depot is a celebrity brand. So yes, let's talk about celebrity.
So we had talked a bit off camera, and I got thinking, I think when, you go back far enough, and our kids wouldn't really quite conceptualize this, but a celebrity was someone who, it wasn't a single thing that they did. It had to be a couple movies.
It's a brand.
And it was a number of things they did, and oftentimes all we saw was a picture of them. We maybe never heard them outside of the TV show they were on, or that was it. Like,
even the script that they were reading. John Candy, at the time we record this, is a very, very popular celebrity brand who's passed many, many years ago. But John Candy had a brand, and many of us didn't get to see inside that, much like Chris Farley, because we know... If you've watched the documentary, if you understand the brand and the sadness of his loss, it obviously came to the negativity in his life and trauma and even his body type and heart attack and but we never associate that.
And John Candy, well, two things. John Candy, I don't know if you or I would know if he was more liberal minded or conservative. Just because politics and celebrity were just like.
They were detached.
It was house and state and church type.
100%.
And then the other thing was, other than very limited examples where you'd have like a Shirley Temple type individual, it was rare that kids were celebrities. Maybe a dog was, Lassie was a celebrity, but it was usually adults who had had a history of doing something amazing.
Sure, and what do we associate with childhood celebrity too? What do we associate with that? I would say drug use, negativity, young suicide. There's lots written on the internet, whether conspiracy or otherwise, on the number 27 and how many celebrities from Kurt Cobain to Amy Winehouse, passed away prior to or on their 27th birthday. And
no way. Really?
Oh yeah, have a look at the people are doing it right now. They're Googling it as they're listening. But 27 is a dangerous again, I don't want to get into conspiracy. 27 happens to be a number that many celebrities passed away at. And so there's this argument or conspiracy. I won't get into
Well, there's only 30 options.
Right.
Really, so.
Yeah. But you're right. So but I didn't mean to interrupt you, but what do we associate with childhood celebrity, right? I can think to Stand By Me as a movie. I mean, some of the young kids that became super famous from Hollywood fame. And there's so many others. Oh, yeah. River Phoenix. And I'm sure people are Googling right now the cast. But there's some dangerous times because obviously with money and fame and celebrity prior to social media is what we're talking about. That came with the vices in the world, right? Chris Farley famously drank himself, smoked himself, drugged himself to death, they say. Never mind the fact he was he was overweight and other elements. And that's very sad reality. But because you're part of the Saturday Night Live crew, because you're making multi-million-dollar movies, and because you carry the stresses of that, never mind the vices you're using, you pass away. So, and I'm not saying at all that Chris Farley, for example, or John Candy are children. However, John Candy only lived till he was 31 years old.
Wild.
And I'm at an age now where that's young. And there's people listening to this right now where that's old, but or somewhere in between.
Who's John Candy?
And there's others that are who's John Candy? Uncle Buck. Uncle Buck.
That's right.
Yeah, so and loved Canada and everything else. I love the conversation of celebrity because we think of celebrity as a human term. And I think that's what really hit me when I started studying. And I've always studied celebrity. I studied it before I studied it. As a child, I recognized that someone had influence. And off camera, you and I talked about Ronald Reagan, who was a president in a country I'm not a part of, but who was, not to me, he was a president celebrity. But then I recognized early Westerns and acting. He was arguably one of the first who crossed that line. And now we have that plenty. I mean, the current president is a celebrity who went into politics, right? So, and versions of that. And even the former, Prime Minister Trudeau arguably had a celebrity, but in politics as a first child, right? I always said, Justin Trudeau, say what you want about him, like him, hate him, that triggers some, that's not what this is about. He had tea with the Queen at 8 years old. Can you understand the working man, working class families if you grew up the first child of a country? This isn't an attack at Justin Trudeau. It's just that, so he was a celebrity or part of a celebrity family. So can you lead in a non-celebrity way? So that's why I love the fascination.
The one thing that's really fascinating about celebrity too is, maybe I'm just making this up a bit, but it seemed like there was a long period of time where there was like a basket of celebrity and that basket didn't really grow. Come along social media, and it's like, well, who isn't a celebrity? Let's be fair. And you're just either you're a 0 or you're 100 on the scale. You're just on the scale somewhere.
That's such a great point. I really love that you brought that up because you're absolutely right. Whether it's number of followers, number of likes, the amount of impressions you received. We have YouTubers at 8 years old who unpackage a box of baseball cards who go viral, and then that viral video is picked up by a local news chain in the town they live in anywhere, Canada or USA, and then they're a local celebrity and they've got an appearance, and now Upper Deck or the card company they were opening wants to sign them, and so you're so right. And that story that I just told isn't hyperbole. That happens all the time.
Right.
And so you're right. What isn't celebrity? This is why it's a fascination of mine, is because what is influence? Your neighbor who doesn't have a quote-unquote celebrity is someone you either like or don't like, someone who's completely oblivious to what you do, or you've become a neighbor, maybe not a friend, but a neighbor. That neighbor, because they live where you live, is someone who has influence. Right? That's not a celebrity, though.
Yeah.
They're not known necessarily until you turn on your YouTube and realize they're a gamer in their basement and they, wow, I didn't even realize you were a celebrity, which also is an interesting point. If I don't know someone's a celebrity, but my child thinks they're a celebrity, are they a celebrity?
That's right.
And the answer is, well, yeah. It's not just about earnings. Where I come from, there's multiple YouTubers and Twitch streamers, which a lot of your viewers and listeners might go, what's a Twitch streamer? A Twitch streamer would be the exact same as someone who had a famous sitcom in the 80s. It gets millions of views throughout the year, maybe hundreds of thousands a month. They are paid for those views and performance. Well, that's what Twitch streamers and YouTubers can do now. In my geographic area where I'm from, there are I'll say I don't know if they're multi-million, but certainly multi-$100,000 earners, $300,000, $600,000 a year on YouTube, Twitch streams, even TikTokers, although you can't monetize in Canada the same way you can in the States and other things. That exists. But if I said their names to you right now, You'd have no idea.
Yeah.
Because the genres, and I take this from the cable culture. You're old enough to remember, many of your listeners are, the cable culture. So you and I grew up probably very similar, where we had one channel, CBC, maybe CBC French. If you were lucky, if you were in the city, maybe you had cable in the late 80s, early 90s, where all of a sudden the cable culture allowed you to watch the horse and riding channel. If you were a horse person and you liked horses, there was a channel to see just horses. Home and garden television, MTV, much music television, when they actually played videos and music television, not sitcoms. But so I call that the cable boom. So what we're living in now is a version of that for our young people. Yeah. If you are interested only in one video game, there are thousands of videos and video game players, creators, who will teach you, the cheat codes and the other things you can do to be better at that game. That's no different than watching the BMX channel when you and I were kids. Yeah. Now you can be an expert in something that is so minute. Yeah. You want to make candles for a night farmer's market, there are YouTubes and TikToks. And I don't think that's a bad thing, by the way. Yeah. I'm not saying that like so many others my age who point their cane at the sky. I think that's a good thing. I think if you want to learn, depending on the topic, if you want to learn more about making candles and make that a side hustle, and I can actually go do that with things I can buy from the grocery store with mom's allowance, that's not a bad thing. Yeah.
It's, it's funny, I watch YouTube a fair bit. Just spend time.
We're on it right now.
Yeah. And so, it's almost a cliche or a meme kind of joke where, your kids will be watching funny reels and your wife will be watching something about cats and dad's over in the corner watching drywalling videos.
I was just going to say repairing a dishwasher. Yeah.
And then freaking YouTube just got me. I literally watch a lot of drywall videos. Yeah. And why suddenly are the people doing the drywall attractive young women?
Wow.
What the heck?
Yeah.
I didn't need it. I was watching them already.
So we've already talked about this in this podcast. And I know it's a facetious joke or it's a fun conversation, but it's all about packaging. Yeah. We have to recognize that the people put in front of us for products, even now that AI is a part of it, are going to be packaged based on your confirmation bias. If you're a male watching a drywall video, there's going to be an attractive female, a heterosexual male, I should add.
Yeah, and if it's a woman watching a drywall, it's going to be a guy without a shirt.
Absolutely. Well, and this is another misconception, and I'm not one to, this is no mansplaining at all, but I have learned plenty that men objectify women. Women do not objectify in the same way. It's all about humor or a friend and so it's not fair of us, and I'll stand by and say it, you don't have to. It's not fair of us to say that what we look for in a package online is not the same. They might want, and I'm not a heterosexual female. I don't know what makes a better host. I do know what the package I'm looking for should be or in my confirmation bias, right? Maybe I want someone scholarly with all kinds of doctorate diplomas and certifications. We all do look for something different. It's easy to crash right into our, and we do. We were raised as Gen X to objectify. Don't like it. I've done my reconciliation in that. I understand it. I'm a heterosexual male. I have objectified. I understand what's quote unquote hot or sexy based on what I've seen. But it's so interesting now how that's different. Yeah. How humor, intelligence, never mind physical attraction, an attraction to the way you might develop an argument or I just find that so fascinating. And I go all time into my confirmation bias on what I would want something packaged in and go, oh, they don't want it packaged like that at all.
Yeah. I'm quite fascinated, and you mentioned arguments, but I'm quite fascinated that one of the celebrity things that, you could be a celebrity because you have a great figure. There's lots of that. You could be a celebrity because you're, you have a unique set of knowledge that other people, or you have a certain way of talking about some knowledge. But what's really fascinating is this one skill set of creating controversy. And a person who can create controversy can create an audience. Just fascinating to me. Charlie Kirk, for example.
Charlie. I mean, there's any politician right now who represents a party, right? And party politics is coming into our municipal elections as well, and that's the reason because it. And what you're talking about, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about what I do for a living, which is social media, marketing and management on behalf of brands, personal and business, professional and volunteer, nonprofit. What you're talking actually about is engagement. Controversy, in my opinion, as I listen to you, is simply engagement.
Right.
So we've all seen a bland, generic post. No one stops at and no one comments on. No one likes, no one reacts to on LinkedIn.
Here's bland information with no color
Correct.
whatsoever.
But the moment I say, do pineapples belong on pizza?
Yeah.
There are, and that's a common trope. That's a common meme on the internet, right? Do pineapples belong on pizza? There are people right now in the comment section of this video that will say absolutely yes, and there will be people that say absolutely not. Controversy, which is what you're talking about, is great, and I love that you brought that up. But what I think of as a marketer is engagement, because what I need for that to hit your algorithm, what I need to sell you snow shovels in the future, if I sell snow shovels, is for my pineapples on pizza to gain traction, interaction, engagement, reaction, comments, likes. Did you know, a lot of people don't, did you know that if you get a negative reaction on a Facebook post on the Meta platform, a negative reaction, just to be clear, is a sad face, a crying, emoji, or the compassion emoji where it's a hug, right? And by the way, this happens all the time. Let's take a hypothetical. Your business was broken into, the front door was smashed, they left with some stuff, and you as an entrepreneur or business owner the next day posted, we had a really awful night. If anyone sees this car, here's the picture of our window. That post receives a ton of negative interaction. Sad face, compassion, right? Negative. Terrible for Meta.
Really? Wow.
Because you're based on a point system.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't get this. So your goal, if you're listening to this, free marketing advice, never try and get sympathy on a Facebook post that doesn't give you a positive reaction, a heart or love.
You would think alarm systems and security guards would want to advertise on that video.
Well, of course, they want to buy. Of course, the data buying and the data bargaining. Of course, and with any social media advice, there's a workaround, right?
Yeah.
Compassion does in a local feed, never mind an algorithm, earn you incredible. Right now, donations, a GoFundMe has started. So don't get me wrong. There's all kinds of, we can spin, I mean, I work in political campaigns. You can spin anything negative said into something positive. That's what spin is, which is so dastardly and not fair. And I don't do anything that's above my own principle or below my own principles. However, you can spin anything. So you're right. There are advertisements that would want to be a part of that. And the local algorithm, by the way, which is a non-algorithm, is in your local community where your store was broken into. People are leaving you gifts and thank you cards and replacing your stock. So of course there's positive spin to it. But in general, if you get a negative reaction on your Meta platform, you're judged as what the computer does, what the algorithm does, what the God in the sky of social media does is, this is a negative post. This page gets negative reaction. We're not going to show you things that are negative. During COVID, during the pandemic, if you used the word pandemic or COVID, you were given negative points because they didn't want their platform to be talking about such a negative thing like a pandemic.
Have you seen, like, in all of the social media, especially in video, when they put on things like word COVID or murder or just anything negative, they use capitals and small and different fonts so you can kind of cheat the system.
So right now, there's a meme. I get to hang out in high schools and middle schools and be a public speaker, and so I get to learn a lot of the lingo, what's lit and how that's not cool anymore. Did you know that there's such a trauma right now for young people to talk about their career because they're so worried, and it's very hard to get they call it a J*B, a job.
Oh,
J*B, and it's exactly what you're talking about. If you want to say, if you want to use a weapon, I won't even say it here because we'll get flagged on YouTube. I think I've actually already said GUN, right? But if you're talking about a weapon like a GUN, and I'm creating auto captions, I might go G*N.
Right. Yeah.
Because YouTube and other algorithms will pick up on something negative like that. And certainly it's no different. And the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? I mean, I've said that this entire podcast.
Is job is a negative? Like it's
so actually, so there's a lot of apparently, I don't live in
Yeah.
that world anymore. My kids are now 27, 26, 24 years old. So they have jobs, they have careers, they have schooling, they've gone on in their life. But that younger crowd, no different than feeling a doomsday to ever buying a home, right? We know about that. Ever leaving their parents' home, right? We know that goes later now, 21, 22, 27, 28. So apparently they have a difficulty with leaving the nest, so to speak, and getting a J*B, a job, because it creates a lot of anxiety. We know this is the ADHD generation. We know this is the anxiety generation. We know there's fear into going into an exam. You and I had to do it. We had to do it. And if you failed, you failed, and there was no rewrite. This generation is allowed a rewrite. They're allowed 6 rewrites until there's 62% goes up to an 83%. And I don't agree with that, but it's not about agreeing with it. It's different generations. So they have an anxiety, I'm told, and please comment below if you do, with things like job or career or living off of an allowance from your parents, because that is a transition in our lives. You and I take it for granted. I really think we do. We take for granted that someday back then you had to get a job and fend for yourself. Didn't mean if you were fortunate enough to have parents, grandparents, people that helped you, that you didn't get some help in that job. Might have been a part-time job, but you still lived at home, didn't pay rent, didn't put milk in the fridge. But we take that for granted. I really believe this generation of anxiety, difficulty going out into the quote-unquote real world, when you have to do it, depending on your upbringing and whether you have loving parents that helped you do that, hold your hand, so to speak, which I did. I was fortunate to have that. They do. So yeah, J*B has become this meme of representing a job when you don't want to say it. I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it.
Wow. That's interesting.
I know.
We're in the job world. My real life is the job world, right? So it's
right.
That's fascinating. But and I guess I don't know if I was to give an 18-year-old or 16-year-old any advice at all, it would be like, you have no clue how many different jobs are. You have no clue. Like, I don't even have a clue, and I'm literally in the business of putting people into jobs, and I have no clue of all the jobs. None whatsoever.
In my younger life, like so many other athletes, I was a school athlete. I played hockey. I played baseball. I was a good athlete. Like so many other young boys, very privileged to have that opportunity. Parents were able to drive me to practice and drive me to tournaments. I was privileged. And then much like so many others, when you're in a world where athletics is part of what you do, when gym is your favorite, then you want to get into sports.
Right.
So like everyone else, I wanted to play in the National Hockey League. Play on the field. I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player. But then I start realizing, to your point, because I was also in broadcast, I was also in journalism. I also recognized my passion for media and media relations and communications. Didn't know at the time what those even were.
Yeah.
But now I recognize that whether it's the Calgary Flames, Edmonton Oilers, or the Toronto Blue Jays, there are so many jobs that have nothing to do with working out and being a talented, scouted individual that plays for the team.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? I've in my career had the opportunity to work in professional and amateur sport. My entire career, as I speak to you, I still work in professional sport. I'm a baseball announcer, a hockey announcer. I'm in media. I do lots of things within the job. So when I get to talk to these kids, you might be a basketball or a volleyball player in school, or maybe you play hockey, you're on the AAA team, AA team, you have passions to be Connor McDavid someday. It's so neat to chat with them and say, do you realize if you take law that you can be a player agent now and make multi-millions, because one Connor McDavid client turned into 3, makes a lot of money because you're getting commission, and that's just law. But if you take communications, journalism, marketing, and now they all live on their phones, which we've talked about incessantly, but if you live on your phone and you're able to market your mom's cat, why can't you market a star defenseman or a pitcher who also has a brand? Because we all have this personal brand now. And we're watching major league players in all sports and all facets, even amateurs. We're watching them go, okay, I'm paid a certain amount. As an amateur or a semi-pro athlete, I'm paid $60,000 to $90,000 a year to play a sport. But my body will give out. I will have to find another job. So what I'm going to do along the way, and some of them are very good at it. I mean, someone like Biz Nasty's made a career out of it. He was a plug self-proclaimed plug who got into Twitter, now X, got into podcasting, got into Spittin' Chicklets, and he has a multi-million-dollar celebrity career.
That's wild.
Based on hockey, but has nothing to do with hockey. He never has to put on skates all year. He does, because he still plays the game. But it's so fascinating to me. So one of the things I would tell a 16 to 18-year-old right now, who certainly wants to go into kinesiology, they all want to go into kinesiology, it has to do with sports, I would say start paying attention to AI specifically, but start paying attention to media. This is a podcast. Start paying attention to the fact that back in my day, I used to have to only go to television, radio, or newspaper. Now, if you can develop a persona and a personal brand that becomes trusted, if you can be a thought leader, you can have TikTok, you can have YouTube, you can have a Twitch stream, you can even be an Instagram influencer like I am. I'm 50 years old this year. I'm an Instagram influencer. You can trust what you see, and I only have collaborations with brands that I trust, but because I have done the due diligence for the last 15, 17 years to build my brand, my channel, and my persona, I become a trusted place to advertise products and services.
I'm an influencer to all 15 of our followers.
There you go. There you go. Well, you've got me, so we just earned another, so
16.
That's great. Yeah.
You know, there's an interesting study, you know Derek Ryan from the...
Of course,
He's now
he just
the
retired.
Oilers, yeah.
He just retired,
So he's
actually.
a friend of mine, and he's a really interesting guy because he's almost an unwilling celebrity.
Yeah.
And he's an influencer. He's not even. Like, I follow him and his wife, and Bonnie posts everything. Derek posts nothing.
Sure.
Like, and it's wild. And he's...
Like most athletes.
Yeah, and he's a fabulous guy. Like, he has... You know, he's got great morals. He's got a great family. He's a great player. Like, there's a lot of great things about him. And it's really interesting how he's embraced celebrity to the point of, I'm going to not blow it up and win from it, but I'm going to be a really good Derek Ryan. I'm just a good Derek Ryan.
And so and I want people to, whenever you talk about professional athletes or people within celebrity, I want people to take and equate this conversation to them, because I really do teach this. One of my passions is teaching personal branding. So as you're listening to this conversation with Derek Ryan, former Flame, former Edmonton Oiler, he just announced his retirement from the game. I agree. There are so many great guys of the game who did not get into it for a celebrity.
Yeah,
but they recognize when they travel to Anaheim and 16 Canadians who are on some wedding adventure or Disneyland adventure, standing out in their Oilers jerseys, or back in the day when he was a Flame. Loved him as a Flame, by the way. Loved him as a Flame. Yeah. But then he recognizes, this family from Canada is in Anaheim. I just played the Ducks. I'm going to sign every autograph. I'm going to take every picture. Yeah. And that is that's a responsibility. But the reason I wanted to preface that was saying, whether you're an accountant or a teacher or someone in oil and gas or agriculture, or you're just a generic worker at a trade, you're not generic. You have influence, and you have influence within the office, the culture you're around. So Derek Ryan is a great example of this. Connor really McDavid's not. He is a legitimate. Tiger Woods, Sidney Crosby, these are legitimate celebrities with brands, but it's the Derek Ryans I really honor, because you have a responsibility now, and I've talked about it plenty, to be a demonstrative, good citizen. Yeah, and in my opinion, within the world of hockey, and he'll continue. Who knows what Derek... By the way, I love his career path, and I am a hockey fan. I know all about his career path. If you don't, that's okay, but he did not get there like everyone else. He didn't get drafted. He wasn't one of the stars that went he went the backwards path. He played for the U of A Golden Bears before he played for the Calgary Flames. Nobody does that, just so you know, in the hockey world. So I recognize, and I'm glad you brought him up, but he's a good example of how in a social media and a digital world, we all have a celebrity we don't know we have. You do. Yeah. You do. I'll never forget thinking that my principal of my school, I remember at a very young age, studying this celebrity culture and realizing, wait, the principal of my school is a celebrity.
Yeah, that's right.
Because everyone knows who it is. Circle. Everyone knows who it is. It's a person of power.
Yeah.
right? It's no different than a political figure if you think of what a principal is.
Yeah.
They have control over my learning, my well-being, decisions they make have an impact on me, all of the things. So,
Yeah.
so that's why I really love studying a principal of a school. And if a principal of a school can be a celebrity, like a Derek Ryan,
Yeah.
then so can the neighbor at number 110 on your street. That can be someone of influence. If they do their lawn well, if they upkeep, if they're not having noisy fire pits in the backyard,
Yeah.
or their apartment isn't the place that stinks like food till 2 a.m., you're being a demonstrative good citizen. And I think that is what celebrity is.
Yeah.
I really do. And I think the Derek Ryan, it's so weird we got from there to there,
Yeah.
but I really like that because he's not a celebrity, but he was pushed into that. And I think we all have to live a life now.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. And I don't think I condone it if I were to deeply, deeply think of it. Do I wish social media wasn't around? Well, I think we'd be a much more grounded, and I think our fellow man would be much more respected. I really do. That's a whole other conversation. But I really, really believe that now, whether you're someone who posts every day or just scrolls or isn't even online, you are a demonstrative celebrity and you have influence over someone, so use it well.
Yeah, 100%. Well, listen, we've kind of run to the end.
Yeah.
Well past what we said we'd do. So that means we have to do it again at some point. So.
I would love that. And I really hope there's some engaging things here. I always, it's your podcast, but I love, I love getting tagged in things. I love if you heard this that you might tag me or follow. That's not to get followers. I have plenty. I really, really like taking things offline. If there's a component, especially for you, if you're listening and you're troubled by something, like it's really important to find someone to talk to about that. And this isn't one of those 1-800 numbers at the bottom of the screen. That's important too.
It's important.
But if you have a teenager and you're like, they are a content creator, they do make Lego claymation, and I actually don't know what to do with that because I was never a creative. I'm someone for free. This is not about business. This is not I am someone who understands that because I was that kid. And if you don't have that kid, if you don't have that in your toolbox, if you're not the uncle, the aunt, the grandma, the mom, the dad, the step parent that can understand that, find that kid something.
Yeah. 100%.
Find that kid something because you haven't got someone who just likes screen time or playing video games. You've got a potential creator or an entrepreneur or someone who's going to be a good citizen.
Nice to foster.
Yeah, foster it.
Right.
Thank you.
Lovely. All right. Well, thanks for your time. We'll talk again.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Okay. Bye for now.